Lionel Messi? He already won it. Qatar 2022. The tournament that hung over the greatest player who ever lived like an unpaid debt for 20 years. And he walked into the final, scored twice, converted in the penalty shootout, and closed the file. The greatest World Cup final ever played. He was the reason. So why is he coming back? Because he can. Because the 2026 tournament is being hosted 3 hours from where he plays his club football. Because Lionel Messi doesn't retire before Lionel Messi is ready. He'll be 38. The pace that used to swallow entire defensive lines is operating at reduced capacity. The touch is still there. The vision. The ability to receive the ball in a tight pocket, turn without looking, and thread it somewhere nobody else identified. At Inter Miami he's still producing moments that make people who've watched football their whole lives glance at each other in silence. 8 Ballon d'Ors, the Champions League, La Liga, Copa America, the World Cup. 2 decades of being the best footballer alive. When Argentina's tournament ends in 2026, however it ends, you'll have watched the greatest player in the history of the sport at a World Cup for the final time. There is no version of this where you don't watch every single minute. Lionel Messi doesn't come around again. Cristiano Ronaldo. At 41 years old, Cristiano Ronaldo will walk onto a World Cup pitch. Read that again. 41. In a sport where most forwards are fading at 33 and finished at 36, Ronaldo has kept going through obscene physical conditioning, psychological stubbornness, and a total refusal to be told what he's supposed to do at any given age. He's the all-time international top scorer. Over 130 goals for Portugal. He's played in 5 World Cups. 5. And never won one. That's the wound that doesn't close. He was brilliant in 2006, carried Portugal through knockout rounds across 3 more tournaments, and the closest he came was a 3rd place finish 20 years ago. Portugal now have the players around him. Ruben Dias, Bruno Fernandes, Bernardo Silva. The supporting cast is better than it's ever been. He moved to Saudi Arabia, which everyone said was the retirement announcement disguised as a transfer, and then just kept scoring. Kept doing the celebrations. Kept showing up. The honest take is that 2026 is an extraordinary long shot for him to finally get what he's chased his whole career. But watching a 41-year-old who's spent 25 years refusing to accept limits walk into a World Cup one last time is not something you get the opportunity to do very often. Possibly never again after this. Luka Modric. He won the Ballon d'Or in 2018. The same year Messi and Ronaldo didn't. For Luka Modric, from Croatia. A country of 4 million people with absolutely no business producing a generational midfielder of his caliber, and somehow it did. He was Croatia's best player when they reached the 2018 final. He was Croatia's best player when they finished 3rd in 2022. At 37 years old. His range of passing, his ability to carry the ball through pressure, his pressing, his reading of the game, all operating at an age where most footballers have already been doing punditry for 2 years. He'll be 40 at the 2026 World Cup. Croatia's squad is aging around him. But Modric doesn't age like the rest of football. He seems to operate under a grandfather clause that was never offered to anyone else. The real thing to watch isn't whether Croatia win anything. It's whether the greatest midfielder of his generation, in his final tournament, produces one more moment that makes you remember exactly why he was always in the conversation nobody expected him to enter. Manuel Neuer. The sweeper keeper. The man who redefined what a goalkeeper was supposed to be and spent a decade making the entire position reconsider itself. Before Neuer, goalkeepers distributed when they had to and hoped for the best. Neuer came charging 30 yards off his line and made the offside trap viable from positions nobody had attempted before. He won the 2014 World Cup with Germany. Was named the best goalkeeper in the world repeatedly. Survived a ski accident that looked career-ending. Survived leg fractures. Survived more physical setbacks than most goalkeepers have clean sheets and kept returning every time. His reflexes at 40 are not what they were at 26. That's not an opinion, that's physics. But positioning and reading the game are built over 2 decades and don't disappear with age the same way pace does. He will be the oldest goalkeeper at the 2026 World Cup. Germany will have relied on him for 5 tournaments by the time it starts. The style of goalkeeping he invented is now the default expectation for every elite goalkeeper in the world. When Neuer's tournament ends, you're watching the retirement of the man who changed the position forever. Doing it one last time. Guillermo Ochoa. He will play in his 6th World Cup. 6th. Between 2006 and 2026, across 20 years, through clubs on 4 continents, one man has remained Mexico's goalkeeper. His save against Brazil in 2014 is one of the most replayed moments in World Cup history. Neymar hit it perfectly. Ochoa read it perfectly. The world discovered he existed at the same moment. He'll be 40. Still making saves that briefly make commentators incoherent. His reflexes, his shot stopping, his command of the area have kept him Mexico's undisputed number one across 4 generations of outfield players around him. The squad rebuilt multiple times. Ochoa stayed. That alone tells you what every coaching staff thought of the alternative. 6 World Cups his territory, almost no outfield player enters, let alone a goalkeeper. Peter Shilton, Gianluigi Buffon, and Doni Zubizarreta are the names in that conversation. Ochoa joins them in 2026 on his doorstep, representing a nation that has never passed the quarterfinals and will hope this is finally the time. Whatever happens, watching a 40-year-old who first played in this tournament when half his current squad weren't born yet is not something football lets you see very often. Neymar. The most talented Brazilian since Ronaldo. Possibly since Ronaldo Nazario. And also the most injured footballer of his entire generation, which is the kind of biographical footnote that never stops hurting. He passed Pelé's all-time Brazil goal-scoring record. He did it on one working knee for most of his later career. He tore his ACL in 2023 and spent a year rebuilding. By 2026 he'll be 34 with a body that has been through multiple surgeries, multiple rehabilitations, and a career spent being targeted by defenders who knew stopping him legitimately was essentially impossible. At his best he was unplayable. The dribbling. The footwork. The ability to shift direction at full pace in spaces that shouldn't accommodate a human body. Brazil without a fit Neymar are still a good team. Brazil with one are a different conversation entirely. Whether his body lets him show up properly is the only question that matters. If it does, 2026 might be the tournament where you finally see what he was always supposed to be. Robert Lewandowski. He scored 41 Bundesliga goals in a single season. In 29 matches. That's not a record. It's an impossibility that happened anyway. He broke Gerd Muller's record that had stood for 49 years and then acted like he barely managed it. His technical quality as a center forward was complete. First touch, movement, finishing with both feet, headers, link play, hold-up work. He did everything a striker was supposed to do, and did it at the top level for 15 years. He'll be 37 when Poland play in 2026. He joined Barcelona at 34, when most strikers are winding down, and scored 23 league goals in his first season. He's Poland's all-time leading scorer by a margin that makes second place feel theoretical. The problem is Poland's squad never fully matched him. He spent his entire international career carrying a team that gave him far less than he deserved, with his best World Cup exit coming in the round of 16. Whether Poland qualify and whether Lewandowski can produce one last run through a tournament at 37 are both open questions. What isn't open is this: he was the best center forward in the world for a decade. Finishing that looked simple because he'd done all the difficult work before the ball arrived. If Poland make it to 2026, watching Lewandowski in his final tournament is watching a player who spent 2 decades making the hardest thing in football look like routine maintenance. Kevin De Bruyne. There's a version of this conversation where De Bruyne is the best central midfielder of his generation who just happened to play at the same time as the era that sucked most of the oxygen out of the awards room. His passing range is extraordinary. Long switches through balls into spaces that don't open until the moment he's already identified them, cutbacks from deep, and then occasionally he'd just shoot from 25 yards and it would simply go in. He holds multiple Premier League records for assists. He was the architect of Manchester City's dominance across a decade. His injury record was the only thing that interrupted an otherwise relentless consistency at the highest level. Belgium, however, never fully matched what De Bruyne was capable of extracting from a team. The golden generation peaked at 4th place in 2018, and that was probably the best shot they had. He'll be 34 to 35 at the 2026 World Cup. The body has taken its toll, but the vision, the delivery, the ability to change a match with a single pass in the final third, that remains. Belgium will need to qualify, which is no longer the formality it once was. If they do, and if De Bruyne stays fit, you're watching the last time a midfielder of that specific passing quality represents his country at a World Cup. That's not a minor thing. Antoine Griezmann. He scored the opening goal in the 2018 World Cup final. France won 4-2. He won the bronze ball as the tournament's third-best player and was absolutely central to France becoming world champions, then spent the following tournaments being slightly misunderstood by whoever was organizing the French system that week. At club level he's been one of Europe's best for a decade. Atletico Madrid, Barcelona, back to Atletico. His pressing from the front was elite before pressing became the word analysts used at every post-match debrief. His movement into the box as a second striker. His technical quality in tight areas. He doesn't look like the most dangerous man on the pitch and then scores from nowhere, which is a genuinely useful quality in a footballer. He'll be 35 at the 2026 World Cup. France will be without Benzema. Mbappe carries the burden, but Griezmann in a supporting role is still one of the most intelligent forwards in the tournament. His World Cup record is serious. Goals, assists, big moments. If France go deep in 2026, he'll be in the middle of it. He's been quietly excellent for 15 years, and it would be completely typical that his final tournament is the one people finally start noticing him properly. James Rodríguez. In 2014 he scored 6 goals in 5 games and won the Golden Boot at 22 years old. His volley against Uruguay, chest, drop, left foot, top corner, won the Puskás Award and turned him into one of the most expensive players on earth overnight. Real Madrid paid €75 million. The world expected a decade of that. The decade that followed was defined by injuries, inconsistency, and a revolving door of clubs that never quite worked out the way they should have. Bayern Munich on loan. Everton for one good season under Ancelotti. Then moves further and further from the spotlight he'd occupied in the summer of 2014. The talent was always visible in glimpses. The fitness was always the question. He'll be 34 to 35 at the 2026 World Cup. Colombia will be built around him one more time. The tournament is practically on his continent. If there is a stage designed for James Rodríguez to produce one more moment of the quality that stopped the world in Brazil, this is it. His career reads like a rough draft of what it was supposed to be. His final chapter might be the one that ties the whole thing together. Virgil van Dijk. He is 6 feet 4 inches, technically composed, reads the game better than most midfielders, and is genuinely comfortable playing out from the back under serious pressure. For a period between 2018 and 2020 he was essentially unchallengeable as the best defender on earth. Liverpool barely conceded. When they did, it was usually because he wasn't there. His ACL injury in October 2020 derailed most of the season. Watching him rebuild back to that level was one of the quieter impressive things in football over the last few years. He captains Liverpool. He captains the Netherlands. He organizes, communicates, wins headers at both ends, and his long passing from centre-back opens attacks that shouldn't begin where they begin. He'll be 34 for 35 at the tournament. The Netherlands lost to Argentina in the 2022 quarter-finals in a match that felt like it could have gone either way. Van Dijk was immense throughout. This is probably his last shot at going further. A centre-back of his quality comes along once a generation, and this generation's version is 34 and still motivated. That's worth paying attention to. Ivan Perisic. He scored in the 2018 World Cup final. The only goal that gave France any genuine concern. He leveled it at 2-1 with a volley from the left that demonstrated everything about why Perisic spent a decade being Croatia's most important player while never quite receiving the fame that fact warranted. He scored in multiple knockout stages across 2 World Cups. His left foot was devastating in wide positions. His crossfield running, his ability to arrive late and finish across goal, his involvement in almost every dangerous Croatia moment across the best decade in their football history. Modric gets the credit for that era. Correctly. But Perisic was the engine on the other side of the pitch for most of it. He'll be 37 at the 2026 World Cup and coming off serious injury. Whether Croatia's aging squad can qualify and compete is not guaranteed. But if he's there, you're watching the final chapter of a player who represented a country of 4 million people across 4 World Cups and consistently delivered on the biggest stage available to him. That's the entire story of Croatian football condensed into one man's career. Edin Džeko. He grew up in Sarajevo. That sentence alone carries more weight than most football biographies. He came through as his country was still rebuilding itself, became Bosnia's greatest player, and spent his entire career dragging a nation that only gained its football federation in the 1990s toward the world stage. He was their captain, their top scorer, and their entire attacking system for the best part of 15 years. His hold-up play was underrated because people focused on the goals. His link play, his technical quality for a man built like a battering ram, his ability to bring others into the game. He scored heavily in the Bundesliga at Wolfsburg, won the Premier League with Manchester City, became Roma's most prolific Serie A striker, and won the Italian title again with Inter Milan. His club career touched the highest levels of European football across 3 decades. Bosnia qualified for the 2026 World Cup. He'll be 40 when they play. That is the entire story of a generation wrapped in one fact. He carried Bosnia to their first ever World Cup in 2014 and scored when he got there. Now he gets one final tournament to do it again. Some players carry clubs. Džeko carried a country. That distinction matters. Son Heung-min. He became the first Asian player to win the Premier League Golden Boot. Shared it with Salah in the 2021-22 season, 23 goals each, entirely on merit. He's Tottenham's captain, South Korea's captain, and South Korea's all-time leading scorer by a significant distance. He served mandatory military service to keep his international career alive. South Korea's government grants exemptions for athletes who win major tournaments, and Son's bronze medal at the 2018 Asian Games qualified. He spent weeks in a military training camp, came back, and kept scoring. The logistical obstacles in his career involve things most European players have genuinely never had to consider. He'll be 33 to 34 at the 2026 World Cup. The pace has reduced slightly, but his movement, finishing, and delivery in the final third remain elite. South Korea consistently qualify, consistently compete, and occasionally produce a knockout run that surprises everyone. Son has spent a decade being the reason that's possible. Whether he gets one final tournament where South Korea go further than they're supposed to, with him at the center of it, is the story worth following. Sadio Mane. He's Senegal's all-time leading scorer. He won the Africa Cup of Nations in 2022, the first time Senegal had ever won it, and scored the decisive penalty in the final despite not being fully fit for weeks, because Sadio Mane at 60% in a big game was still a serious problem for the opposition. He played for Liverpool when they won the Champions League and the Premier League. He won the Bundesliga with Bayern Munich. He moved to Saudi Arabia and the mainstream conversation moved on, which is what always happens when players leave European football. But the quality never disappeared. His acceleration, his ability to take the ball in behind, his finishing in one-on-one situations, that was built across 20 years of elite football and doesn't vanish because the league name changes. He'll be 34 at the 2026 World Cup. Senegal have a squad building around and beyond him. The gap between African football and the traditional powers is narrowing with every tournament. If Mane arrives fit and Senegal make the knockout stages, you're watching a player who spent a decade winning the biggest trophies in club football going one last time for the one prize that always escaped him. That's exactly the kind of story you watch to the end. Which of these players has meant the most to you, and who do you think has one last miracle left in them? Which player's era will you miss the most? Tell us in the comments. Subscribe, and thanks for watching.